Los Angeles is a city of dreams, but dreams can quickly turn into nightmares. This was the lesson Alex learned when he moved into the historic Wilshire Tower, a crumbling Art Deco building near downtown. Alex was a struggling screenwriter who had just landed his first big pitch meeting. To save money, he rented a tiny studio in the tower, which had seen better days. Its grandeur had faded, replaced with peeling wallpaper, dimly lit hallways, and a faint smell of mildew that clung to everything. But Alex didn't mind. The rent was cheap, and he wasn't planning to stay long. From the moment he moved in, Alex noticed something odd. The building didn't have a 13th floor, or at least not officially. The elevator panel went from 12 to 14, skipping the number entirely. It was a common practice in older buildings, meant to avoid bad luck. But what struck Alex as strange was the fact that sometimes, late at night, the elevator stopped on 13 anyway. The doors would slide open to a dark, empty hallway, even though there shouldn't have been one. The first time it happened, Alex dismissed it as a glitch. The second time, he told himself it was his overactive imagination. But by the third night, he could no longer ignore it. It was past midnight when he returned from a late-night coffee run. The elevator creaked its way up to his floor, but instead of stopping at 10, where Alex lived, it shuddered to a halt at 13. The air turned ice-cold as the doors slid open. Alex froze, staring into the pitch-black corridor beyond. The lights in the elevator flickered as a low hum filled the air, like the distant sound of whispers. "Hello," Alex called out, his voice trembling. There was no response, only the hum growing louder. Against his better judgment, he stepped out. The floor was eerily silent, and the faint smell of decay lingered in the air. The walls were covered in old, water-stained wallpaper, and the carpet squelched beneath his feet as if it were soaked with something wet. He turned to step back into the elevator, but the doors slid shut before he could reach them. The hum grew into a cacophony of voices, low, guttural, and unintelligible. He turned toward the hallway, heart pounding. At the far end, he saw a figure. It was a woman in a tattered black dress, her back turned to him. Her hair hung in tangled clumps, and her head tilted at an unnatural angle. "Ma'am," Alex said, his voice barely audible over the noise. She didn't respond. Instead, she started to turn. Slowly, too slowly. Her head twisted around first, revealing a pale, expressionless face and sunken black eyes. Her body followed, bending and cracking as if her bones were breaking with each movement. Alex stumbled backward, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The woman began to walk toward him, her bare feet making wet slapping sounds on the carpet. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed, her voice layered with multiple tones, as though a dozen people were speaking at once. The elevator dinged behind him, and the doors slid open. Alex bolted toward it, slamming his hand on the button to close the doors. The woman was only a few feet away now, her outstretched hand reaching for him. Just as her fingers brushed the edge of the door, it slid shut. The elevator lurched, descending rapidly. Alex collapsed to the floor, trembling. When the doors opened again, he found himself in the lobby. The security guard looked up from his desk, startled. "You okay, kid? You look like you've seen a ghost," the guard said with a nervous chuckle. Alex didn't answer. He bolted for the exit and never looked back. The next day, he broke his lease and moved out. A few weeks later, he decided to do some research on the Wilshire Tower. He discovered that the building once had a 13th floor, but it had been sealed off decades ago after a series of mysterious deaths. Tenants had reported seeing shadows, hearing voices, and feeling an oppressive presence. The final straw came when a young woman was found dead in her apartment, her body contorted and her face frozen in terror. The building's owners decided to erase the floor, removing access to it entirely, or so they thought. But Alex knew better. The 13th floor wasn't gone. It was waiting, and sometimes it still found its way back.